Hi everyone, welcome to episode 143 of A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. My name is Carol. I am known as Knitsnpurls on Ravelry, and I'm coming to you from the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, not too far from Vancouver. If you are a first-time viewer, a special hello and welcome to you. Thank you so much for checking out my humble little podcast. And if you are a returning viewer, hello again, welcome back. Thank you for coming by once again to spend part of your day with me. A huge shout out to all of you who left comments and sent notes this past week. I always enjoy reading them, and I so appreciate that you make this an interactive experience rather than me just talking into a camera and sending it out into the ether. I wasn't sure if there was going to be an episode this week. I just really haven't felt like recording. Part of it's just life stuff. Kind of got me in a funk. Part of it is just that when you see what's going on in the world, especially to the south of our border, all of this just seems rather insignificant. I just want to say to my American friends and neighbors that I send my love, my heartfelt wishes for better days ahead. I wish you safety, health, peace, healing, justice. I see you, I care, and I just wish the best as we move forward. And to top things off, today it marks the 5th anniversary of my dad's passing away. And while I think of him often and miss him a lot, of course, those feelings are amplified on a day like today. But I decided that maybe recording would provide a distraction for me and hopefully also provide a distraction for you. A little bit of proverbial sunshine on a cloudy day. And so I'm going to focus on the positive. I'm going to spend the next half hour or so talking about things that make me happy, and I believe will make many of you happy too, like knitting, of course, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't love knitting. I know many of you enjoy bird watching and flowers as much as I do, and so I'm going to share some of that with you too. So yes, on that note, let's proceed. This first project, I didn't think I was going to bother talking about this week because I really haven't made much progress on it, but I was taking some photos yesterday to update my Ravelry project pages, and I slipped it onto 2 needles in order to take a better photo, and decided that probably it was the perfect time to talk about it because I could show it to you better. So the project I'm talking about is Walk Along by Anka Strick. You can see it's a casual, lightweight sweater with kind of a layered look. I am knitting mine from Madeline Tosh Merino Light. I'm using Night Bloom for the main color and Onyx for the contrast. So, if I got this the right way? Yes, I do. So here you go. As you can see, it has raglan construction, top down, whoops. And it has kind of an A-line shaping, not kind of, it has A-line shaping for the body. While I had it on the 2 needles, I decided that that would be a good time to try it on again now that I'm a good halfway down the body, and just see how it was fitting. And I'm very happy with the fit. But I also thought that while it's still on those needles, maybe what I would do is go slip it on for you so that you can also get maybe a, less of a 2-dimensional and more of a 3-dimensional look at this project. So I will be right back after I get changed. Okay, presto changeo. So I'm going to stand up. You're going to lose my head, but that way you will get a better look at the sweater. That's the whole point. So yes, so you can see that it fits really nicely. It's not too clingy, and yet it's not really huge and baggy either. It's just got just the amount of ease that I was looking for. I'll just turn around so you can see the back too. I also like how with the black t-shirt you can kind of get a sense of how it's going to look once that part of the sweater is knit. I'm very happy with the shaping, well, with the sizing here. Sometimes you end up with a lot of extra fabric in this area on a raglan sweater, but I really like the way that it's fitting there. I am not sure if I mentioned it before, but when I was trying to decide which size to make, I tried on a sweater that I had previously knit out of Tosh Merino Light, and I liked the way it fit, so I chose the size that most closely resembled those stitch numbers. And so even though I measure closest to the 3rd size as far as body measurements go, I am knitting the 2nd size. But I think with my gauge, I think I'm ending up with something a little bit between the 2nd and 3rd size as far as finished measurements. Very happy also with how the yarn is knitting up as far as the colors go. I'm holding, because I'm attached to them, I am holding my skeins in each hand here. I'm using the helical method of alternating skeins, so I will knit to 3 stitches before the end of the round, slip those next, drop the yarn, slip the next 3 stitches, pick up the yarn that I ended the round with, and then knit around to 3 stitches before the end of the round. And you just keep doing that over and over again, and it just really blends the colors nicely. So yes, especially being able to try this on, it makes me even more looking forward to finishing this up and having an actual sweater. So I'm going to go change again, and I'm back. So my next project, I think you last saw a couple of weeks ago, but it has received some love since then, and that is the Belvrade hat by Rita Taylor. It's a not so great picture of it here. That's the small version, and it can also be knit in a large version, and either can be knit in multicolored. I am knitting this version out of the suggested yarn. It is a pattern put out by Blacker Yarns, and I'm using the Blacker Yarn Samite, which is a silk and wool blend, 20% silk, 80% wool, and this is the Sunless Hours colorway. Very gray, very reminiscent of a cloudy day, and kind of my hair. I believe it's more accurately called a half hap. My understanding is a hap is a square shawl, and that the half hap would be the triangular version, which is what this is. In any case, it begins with a garter stitch triangle. Then you pick up along the 2 edges of the triangle, and you do some lace. And then once that's done, you start at one end of one side of the shawl, and you work right angles to what you've knit, and you do a knitted on edging. So I think last time I showed it, I was about halfway through the lace part, and I have since finished that. So I have done the central triangle and then have added 4 repeats of the lace. I'm just going to spread it out a little bit better so you can hopefully see it. I think that should pick up pretty well. I goofed a very little bit. I read just recently that I was supposed to knit all of these middle stitches of the spine in stockinette stitch, but I actually knit them in garter where I had a garter ridge intersecting it, and I'm not about to take it back for that minor thing. So as I mentioned, I have now finished step 1 and step 2. I thought it was a little bit strange. I now have to break the yarn on this side and then go to the other side, cast on the stitches for the border, and then begin working it on this side. Seems to me there could have been a step in between that would somehow have you, finish. And I've done this in numerous occasions where you basically finish this part and then just cast on the stitches and then continue along. In any case, I'll do what the pattern says. But yeah, I do think it's coming out really nicely. This is not my favorite yarn to knit with. It's not like super soft, but it's not super scratchy. It's not so much that, but it doesn't have a lot of spring to it, a lot of bounce. I think it's because of the silk content. And so I just find it not as pleasant to actually work with as many wools that I've used in the past. Which is not to say I dislike knitting with it. I just do prefer a yarn with a little bit more give to it. But yeah, so one more step to go. But I know from experience also that applied edging can take quite a while because it uses up more yarn than you realize. I am not positive about the percentages, but I feel like maybe it takes about 50% of your yarn to do a knit-on edging. I guess we'll see. So do look forward though to getting on with that project. Gonna have a little sip of tea, well actually iced tea this week. I am not fond of sweetened iced tea, which if you buy iced tea here in Canada, that's what you get. So I like to make mine out of David's Tea La La Lemon, because it's a black tea with, I think it has lemon and orange peel in it. And so it adds some nice lemon citrus flavor to the tea. And then I put a little bit of lemon in there for good measure. Anyway, very refreshing. All right, let's talk socks. If you're watching last week, you know I went a little crazy and cast on 5 pairs of socks. I had a few people comment about that and kind of encourage me for doing so. The truth is that I used to cast on numerous pairs of socks at once, quite regularly at one time. Early on in my sock knitting, I was part of the Sock Knitters Anonymous group on Ravelry, and they would have a challenge every month, and if I remember correctly, there were several different things that you could choose from. So it might be a particular kind of cast on, or it might be a particular type of stitch like lace or cables, or it might be a particular color or a particular designer. In any case, I used to often like cast on 2 or 3 pairs all at once, incorporating one of each of those requirements for the month. And then what would happen is what's kind of happening now is I'd work my way through them kind of in stages and end up at the end of like the I think it was a 2-month window, I'd end up with like 3 pairs of finished socks. So while last week I talked about casting on and knitting all those cuffs, well, this week it's been all about the heels and in many cases gussets. So let's work our way, or let me work my way through the 3 socks that I am knitting. Sorry, this is going to fall. The 3 socks I'm knitting for the Handmade Sock Society 3 collection. Did I say for that collection? How about from that collection? The first is the Luminary Socks. I'm knitting from skein yarn, top draw socks in the quill colorway. I had bought this yarn a number of years ago and immediately knew when I saw the pattern that this is what I wanted to use for it, and I loved it when I started. I'm still very much in love with how this pair is knitting up. So I will show it to you first. We're on the sock blocker. Features 1x1 twisted rib cuff, a textured stitch pattern along the front that is bordered by 2 rows of lace, and then a plain back. The has just a regular slip stitch heel flap and gusset. So I'll flip this around now so you can maybe see the stitches a little bit better on the front of the sock. A little bit off center, but you get the idea. So obviously the yarn is quite dark, so I tend to not work on these at night, but I really do really like how they're knitting up so far. They will be great to wear like with a pair of jeans if I'm kind of getting a little more dressed up and I'm not wearing boots. I don't mind my colorful socks showing as a rule, but when I'm kind of a little more dressed up and wearing, a little bit dressier jeans, I kind of like my socks to blend in the background a little more, and so these will do that if my cuff happens to, my leg lifts up a little bit. Second pair is the Rainy Window Socks. I am knitting those from this colorway of Hazelnut's Artisan Sock. This was part of a naughty skein. It was divided into two parts. I think the lighter of the two, or shorter of the 2 sections, I think will be enough for 1 sock, but if not, I can borrow from the other one. And this is in a Rogue one-of-a-kind colorway, so it's truly unique. And this is coming along equally as nicely. Again, features sort of a textured, in this case, a bit of a lacy design on the front, made to look like raindrops, and then a windy cable along each side. Again, 1x1 twisted rib cuff and a regular slip stitch heel flap. And again, I will turn this around so you can get a better look at the front. I kind of like these socks that just have plain backs. They're a nice blend of having a patterned sock and yet having that little bit of just a rest, half year round is just knit. Yeah, isn't that coming up nicely? I really love this yarn. I don't know if you can tell, it's got some blue that runs through it. It's mainly purple, but it's got this purpley blue also, and I think it's knitting up really nicely. I believe it's a little bit darker than the camera's picking up. That might be a little more accurate there. I know when I was photographing it for Ravelry, it wanted to lighten up quite a bit. But yes, love these two. And then the third sock that I'm knitting from that collection is the Cirrus Socks. and knitting those from this Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn in the bounce base and the denim colorway. If you remember, I had started this out with a patterned sock blank and just found it too busy, and so I switched to semi-solid, and I am much happier with how it's looking. So here's how that sock's knitting up. It does seem a little bit shorter, but I tried this on last night after I'd worked the gusset, and I think with blocking that will help stretch the length a little bit. And you can see a line. This is where the beginning of the round is, and what I think I'm going to do on the second sock is knit. When I come down to this part, I'm going to knit an extra half round of just plain knitting, and then I'll be able to have this sort of seam beginning of round. I can wear it inside on each leg, because the outside you don't get that same kind of jog in the stitch pattern. It's a funny little picky thing, and I don't always do it, but it's an easy enough thing to do on this particular pattern, so why not? So again, 1 by 1 twisted rib cuff. Helen Stewart likes that. I like the way they look. I don't really like doing them, so I can tell you by the time I had cast on 3 socks, I kind of had enough of it. But slip stitch, heel, flap, gusset, and now it's just plain knitting all the way down the foot. So on this sock, you do have a pattern that goes all around the leg, but you just have plain knitting down the foot. So yeah, so there's the 3 socks from that collection. I'm not sure when the next pattern's coming out. I doubt I will be have finished any of those by that time. I'm also working on a couple of pairs of plain socks. The first, pardon me, is from the same Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bounce yarn, but it's in the chambray colorway. Whoops. And I bought it as a set with the denim. So they go together. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use this for the heel on this pair of socks. So I'm knitting 2 concurrently. This one's a little bit further along than the other. You can see how they're knitting up. So I'm 1 stripe behind here. That gives you a good look. So it's just a 3-stripe colorway divided up with this kind of speckled neutral color, which I really love. I love how these are turning out, and they're just going to be great with just a pair of jeans. That's what I totally think about when I see them. So I'm not sure yet which kind of heel I'm going to do. It's going to depend on where this blue stripe ends up, because I might incorporate it into a short row heel. Sometimes I like to kind of insert a short row heel of the same color sort of midway through a stripe. But if that's not possible, then I might just add it as a traditional heel flap and gusset. So to be determined when I get to that point. Definitely enjoying these 2. Let's see. Move these over here. And then my last pair of plain socks are what were originally my Cirrus Socks, but it was too busy for that pattern. So instead of using this, just knitting them up plain. So I'm using this sock blank from Isis Fiber Arts in the fingering sparkle. It doesn't have a colorway name. So let's show you what the sock blank looks like. I had bought this at Knit City. I think it was the first one I went to. So yeah, how about that for a little sunshine on a cloudy day. I am calling these my sunny day socks just because of that yellow being so bright and cheerful. The blue reminds me of blue sky, and originally I was sort of thinking of that purple as kind of clouds, but now I'm thinking of them more as purple flowers, like maybe petunias, like purple petunias that have just started to bloom in my garden. So yeah, there's a little bright spot of color on a cloudy day as far as I'm concerned. Love knitting from sock blanks. They're so fun. Just, pull off as you go. And they all knit up differently depending on how they've been dyed. So you can see this one's kind of, not exactly striping, but kind of. It's definitely not working up blotchy at all. It just seems to distribute quite nicely throughout. I decided to do a yarn over short row heel on this sock because I liked the way this was knitting up, and I thought that once I was finished with the heel, it will probably continue doing that here. Whereas on a heel flap and gusset, sometimes when you work with a multicolored yarn, it can pool in what I often consider an unattractive way. Lots of people love it when it does this, but I don't like kind of big blocks of pooling over the gusset if I can avoid it. So this should help distribute that color in a more even, less interrupted way. So yeah, that's it for knitting this week. Now I want to talk about a couple of up and coming things. The first thing that is up and coming is a new mystery shawl knit along by Helen Stewart. I was so excited to learn about this. It's been a while, I think, since she's had one, and it's been a while since I've participated in a mystery knit along. So she's calling it the Stillness Shawl, and the first clue is coming out June 25th. There are 5 clues altogether. We don't know what shape shawl it's going to be or anything like that. What we do know is it takes 3 different colors of yarn. So I'm very much looking forward to going stash diving and seeing what I come up with as far as color combinations. To me, that's one of the most fun parts of knitting, is planning your project. And sometimes the reskeins can be really hard to choose, but I am looking forward to the challenge. So the pattern has not yet gone on sale. If you subscribe to her newsletter, you'll get information about when that happens. She does have a website. I believe it's curioushandmade.com. I'll put the website address here and in the show notes. So yeah, if you're interested and up for a mystery shawl knit along, they never disappoint. She always does a great job with her mystery knit alongs. And the other thing I'm really excited about, but it's not coming up for a long time, is on June 1st, Fiber Nymph Dye Works opened up orders for the 2020 Holiday Mini Collection. So it's called the Holiday Pops Mini Countdown Collection this year, and like last year, you can choose from several different yarn bases and fiber bases. I'm not sure, I never look at fiber because I don't spin, but I know you can choose from yarn or fiber. You have several choices as far as bases go. You also have a choice of ordering a full skein from a unique colorway, in addition to the 24 minis that you get. So this year, like last year, the minis will all be designed to go together to be able to be used in a single project day after day after day as you unwrap them. But this year, she's doing colorful speckled yarns and then alternating them with semi-solids. So I just think it's going to be fun either way. I'm not sure what project I'll do yet, but I do look forward to it very much because I had so much fun with this last year. It was a great way to count down to Christmas. I look forward to opening a new little package every day. And even though I don't remember, but I don't think I was able to keep up with my shawl project and my sock project, I definitely had lots of fun doing it. And I know lots and lots of you were also very enthusiastic about it. And that's why I thought I would let you know that this is now open for orders, and it's open till the end of the month. So you have lots of time. You can go to fibernymphdyeworks.com if you want to get all the information and decide if you want to order it. I just brought, for those who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, I brought in the is it the Adventurer scarf? I can't remember the name for sure. This is what I knit with my minis from last year. I'm just making sure I have the right side. Yes. So it started on this end and then worked its way through. It smells really nice. Still smells like the wool wash I used to block it. Then it ended up there. So, yep, highly recommend this as an Advent collection if you are into that kind of thing. Okay, so that's that. As for what's been going on around here this week, again, not very much. I did get the rest of my masks sewn up and off to my mom, and also had made some for my family, so they've all been picked up or delivered. I ended up doing about 40 in all, which I know is nothing compared to some of you who have literally sewn hundreds. And my hat is off to you because I can tell you by the time I was on my last few, I'd had enough of that project. So good for you for sticking it out that long. Very happy to see my garden getting more established. We've continued to have sort of a mix of weather, a day or two of nice weather followed by a day or two of clouds and or rain, and that's proved to be really good for the plants. A number of my perennials are starting to bloom: the clematis, the Maltese cross, the honeysuckle, some salvia, and also some of the annuals that I picked up that weren't yet blooming. Some of them are starting to flower too. Others still have a little ways to go. So it'll be a while before everything's all really well established and at its best, but it's fun to see little bursts of colors starting to show up. Also been really happy to have recently seen another hummingbird hanging around. So I think it was kind of midwinter last year. They all kind of disappeared after our cold snap. We just didn't see any anymore until sometime this spring. And then we had this little male Anna's hummingbird hanging around, but he's very fast. I've been trying to get a picture of it at the feeder, but it does not stay there very long, and phew, off it goes. And when it is on it, it's usually on the opposite side of the feeder from where I am, so I only catch a little glimpse of it. And I've been wondering where all the females are, because usually that's all we see is females. And earlier this week, spotted, one day I actually spotted two hummingbirds at once having a little confrontation, a little battle, but it was off off a ways, and I couldn't tell if it was male or female or what type of hummingbird it was. But I think it was later that day I saw what I believe is a female rufous hummingbird visiting the feeder quite often, and it was sitting in our tree that's just off our deck for quite a while one night, and then it would periodically go from the tree to the feeder and back. And then yesterday I was in our downstairs spare room. You've watched for a while, you've seen me record in there sometimes because it has really good light in the morning. And I was down there taking some pictures for my Ravelry project pages, and happened to look out the window, and there was a hummingbird in my hummingbird garden going from plant to plant to plant, which just made my little heart sing. Last year I did plant along two sides of our deck plants that were designed to, well, the plants were not designed to attract hummingbirds. I deliberately chose plants that would attract hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies. In other words, they're high in nectar, and because they're all kind of drawn to that type of flower. So while I've seen the hummingbird at the feeder a number of times, I hadn't yet actually spotted it in the wild. So I had my camera right there, and I was able to capture it on film. So I will put that in here. Sadly, right at the end, you will see it gets chased away by a starling, which just doesn't seem right. It wasn't hurting the starling, and it's not like the starling likes to eat the nectar out of those plants. So I'm not sure what the starling's problem was, but in any case, it chased it away. I was not happy. Speaking of starlings, we have been inundated lately. They have been taking over the feeders, and sometimes you look out, there's a whole flock on the lawn foraging, I guess, for bugs, worms, I'm not sure. It must be sort of nesting season or breeding season, because the adults are accompanied by a whole lot of babies right now. That's about the only time a starling is actually cute, and it's only minorly cute, and that's when you see the parent walking around with babies following it, and every so often mom or dad turns around and shoves a bug in baby's mouth. But they are noisy, they are messy, and they just are pigs when it comes to the bird feeder. They eat a lot of food and aren't very kind to the other birds. We've also had a lot of blackbirds visiting the feeder. That's typical this time of year. For those who have watched for a while, you know we back onto fields, and so we do tend to get a mixture of sort of field birds and sort of neighborhood, suburban types of birds here. We have really enjoyed watching the goldfinches. We have at least 2 couples that regularly come to the feeder. And it was quite funny. One time we watched, and there's obviously a dominant male because it spent a lot of energy trying to keep the other male from getting at the feeder. It would sometimes allow the other males mate on there, but more often it would just try and protect the feeder so that its mate could eat, or so that it could eat. But then the next time we saw it, and all four goldfinches, both couples, were on the feeder very happily nibbling away. So I am not sure what was up that day with that one male, but he sure wasn't wanting to share. We've also had a family of house finches, and it is so fun to watch the, seems to be the male in particular that will go to the feeder and have a few babies with him, and he'll go and eat a little bit and then come down and put some seeds in the baby's mouth. So again, I don't have it on film to share with you, but I definitely have enjoyed watching them. So that has been sort of a bright spot in during a tough time. We have some encouraging news on the COVID-19 front. It has been a full 2 weeks since British Columbia started easing restrictions and moving into their next phase. And we have not seen a spike in numbers, knock wood. In fact, last week was our lowest number of reported cases since this all began. Yesterday, there were just 4 new cases reported, and they were confined to 2 different businesses. Now, no doubt, once they do contact tracing and a little bit of time goes by, I'm sure there will be other cases resulting from those locations. But so far, we have not seen sort of a big increase in community cases. So yes, cross fingers that people keep on doing what they're supposed to be doing and don't get, too complacent about precautions, following precautions. And let's hope we can have nipped this in the bud for the time being. I think there's still a lot of caution out there. BC schools opened up this week with the option of sending your children, and I don't think there's been a very big influx of students returning to the classroom. My sister, who is an elementary school principal, said it was mainly her oldest and youngest students coming back. My mom lives in a very small town. She said there are only 6 students that went back, and they only have 6 teachers, so it's like a 1-to-1 ratio there. My own daughter and son-in-law have chosen to keep their kids home for the rest of the year. But having said that, I went for my walk yesterday morning and went past the elementary school where my own children went to school. And there were a bunch of kids out in the school field running around and laughing and shouting. And I have to say, it did my heart good. Gave me a real sense of optimism for the future. We've all gone through a really tough time lately. It's been a tough few months with so much of our lives just taking such a different form. And I've made me feel like, everything's going to be okay one day. And this was a start towards that. So that is my something good for this week. And hopefully you can take that and move forward with it too, and know that some things like children running around a school field will happen again one day where you live. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for another week. I thank you, as always, for watching. I hope you feel better after this, that I've been able to bring maybe a slight bit of light into your world today. You certainly have done that for me. I feel much better than when I sat down to record. So thank you for being there, for your kindness and support over the past few years. I just appreciate what you bring to this whole podcasting experience. So please continue to stay well, stay safe, and take comfort in your crafting as we go through continue to go through some troubled times. Yeah, I'll see you next week. Take care till then.